And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
It's a legal matter, baby. A legal matter from now on.
And welcome to The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer, and in studio today we have the big guns with us. We have Joe Murphy, QC, lawyer at Murphy Battista, and his partner, Joe Battista, QC at Murphy Battista in downtown Vancouver. When was the last time we had both of the partners, founding partners, here in the studio?
I don't think we ever have, so this is...
I think a couple years ago, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay.
We might have done it together, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Murphy Battista and how you two came together and how you formed your partnership. And so how did you meet?
Well, Zach, Joe and I met in law school, and we both had a summer job that involved working at the Land Titles Office in New Westminster. And this was a great job if you were a law student because you learned things that were useful. So we worked together. We both graduated from law school and went different ways, but about 4 or 5 years later, I was with a firm and said to Joe, why don't you come and join the firm, which he did. And then about 3 years later, I said to Joe, why don't you come? I'm going to set up a firm. This was the beginning of 1982 when the interest rates were 18% and businesses were closing everywhere.
So this was a great idea to start a new business.
Well, everyone thought, gee, is this really crazy? But it worked out very well because we had a very good practice. We took good care of our clients and did very well. So we started in the gloom of the recession of 82 and today have about, well, it started out Joe and I and 2 secretaries and we rented 2 little offices. Today we have a large office in Vancouver. We have the entire floor of one of the towers downtown.
It's the Scotia Tower, right?
Scotia Tower. We also have an office in Kelowna. We have 16 lawyers and a support staff of about 60.
Wow.
So things have changed. Things have changed.
Now, the other Joe, how come Murphy is got top billing? Did you do a rock, paper, scissors, or did it just sound better?
It was his idea, so we went with it. My mom thought it should be the other way around, but
yeah, I'm sure.
My mom didn't have a vote in this, so we left it Murphy Battista.
And how often do you, as founding partners in a law firm, how often do you actually work together, or you just pass each other in the hall?
I think
in the early days you probably
we talk
did.
about cases, we discuss them, but it was only in the first few years where Joe and I worked together on cases.
I think it's more a question of us working with a more junior lawyer in our firm on cases rather than both of us working on the same case. But like Joe said, if you're stumped about something, we send an email around and you get the benefit of 16 or 17 opinions on everything because, we do help each other. But so
you must have had a similar kind of philosophy when you say we're going to hang out our own shingle, we're going to be our own law firm. And Joe, you decided to get this going. So what was your philosophy that maybe differed from law firms you had worked at as young lawyers? Was there something that you decided to do different than the rest of the market?
It was really simple, and we weren't reinventing the wheel. We thought if we do a really good job for our clients, then the business will come, and it did because in the early years, first 10 or 20 years, we weren't even in the Yellow Pages. And this is when the Yellow Pages had these huge ads for law firms. We weren't there because the work we did came to us on referrals from our clients, from doctors, from therapists, and from a variety of other people that knew we did really good work for our clients. So it sounds sort of corny, but it really works. When I watch the TV now and see all these lawyers' ads, I wonder if people realize that if a law firm is really good and they do good work, they don't need to advertise on daytime TV for their clients.
And Joe, have you always been interested in personal injury? Did you start out that way in law?
I didn't start out that way. I really got interested when I went and joined the firm that Joe was at the time. The other thing, too, is in the late 70s, personal injury law really changed with 3 Supreme Court of Canada cases that really changed how these cases were assessed and how they were built up. And our timing was just right at the time with the change in the laws. For us, it was really burgeoning at the time. So we took a real interest in it at that time. And success breeds more success. And as things were going well for us, we got even more interested in it, and we just sort of concentrated on personal injury. I think people think that once you're a lawyer, you know it all and you do it all, and that might be the case in a small community, but in a place like Vancouver, you really do need to specialize to do a good job and stay on top of things. So our firm, we can't hold ourselves out as experts in personal injury, but certainly that is the vast majority of our work. We're not certified like
the
like
Law
doctors.
Society doesn't allow us to use the word expert.
No,
we can say it's our preferred area of practice.
Mm-hmm. You practice in that area.
Yeah, it's like practicing your golf swing, maybe. I don't know.
But you have many, many years now, so it's 30 plus years.
I'm 40 plus years.
Yeah.
I've been practicing 39 years, and Joe and I have been together 34 of those 39. So.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
jokingly tell Joe he's been with me longer than he's been with his wife.
I'm sure that goes down well at home.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to switch topics. I want to get a little background because, having both founding partners here at Murphy Battista on the radio show is a rare occurrence. As you mentioned, maybe a couple of years has gone by, so I thought we'd get a little background there. So I wanted to bring up something that's been in the news a lot, and that is the Pitbull ban that they tried to pass in Quebec, in Montreal. And so they put it forward, and then it was withdrawn or rescinded. It went to court. So maybe you can give us, Joe, a little background on that particular situation.
As I understand it, Zach, the legislation that's now being considered arose from a woman being mauled to death in Montreal 4 or 5 months ago. And that's a terrible tragedy. And everyone's concerned about having streets that are safe for ourselves, for our kids, for our dogs. So the last thing anybody wants is a vicious, aggressive dog in their neighborhood. And this woman tragically was killed. There's 2 to 3 people a year in Canada mauled to death by dogs. So it's a rare occurrence, but it's a terrible tragedy. The bylaw that the Montreal government brought in was in response to that, but they have a bylaw that bans any new pitbulls coming into Montreal. They have to be licensed, and they won't license any new dogs. But what I found strange is that the law applies to a variety of pit bull breeds, any mix of those breeds, and I don't know what any mix means. If you're 5% pit bull and 95% Chihuahua, does this apply to you? And it applies to, quote, any dog that presents characteristics of one of these breeds. Well, is it characteristic to bark? Is it characteristic to love to run and jump? I don't know. So the idea behind the legislation of making the streets safe for anyone is a great idea. But the legislation, as I read it, is so vague and confusing. I don't know how you would know as a dog owner, okay, this applies to my dog, or this applies to a dog I'm thinking about buying, because Montreal has said any dogs, pit bulls that are in the city are bound by this. They have to be muzzled. They have to be controlled. But we're not allowing any new pit bull dogs like these into the city. So if you're looking to buy a dog, and one of the characteristics of the legislation, or one of the dogs it applies to, any dogs that presents with characteristics of a pit bull, I think you'd have a hard time understanding, okay, is this dog affected by this legislation, which means I can't get it, or is it not? So,
but I think there was a bit of a back and forth on that. The SPCA challenged it, I believe, and it was they walked it back. Is that what's happening?
Well, as we speak today, the court application is pending and it was an application by SPCA to say this is unconstitutional, it's vague, and I think the judge who heard that application had a number of very legitimate concerns, because one of the things that with any law is you have to be able to understand the law, and you have to understand what it either requires you to do or prevents you from doing. And the bylaws, I've seen it, is quite confusing, and I think would be next to impossible to apply and to enforce.
Now, Joe, the other Joe Battista, what is the difference between give us a little law 101 here. The difference between a law and a bylaw. Is it just one as a municipal law? Is it as enforceable as a law, the provincial law, for example?
It is. These are laws that are put in place to govern us. breaching a bylaw doesn't automatically make you liable. It can be prima facie evidence of some negligence on your part, but same thing if you get a traffic ticket, for example, for speeding. It's prima facie evidence that you were doing something wrong, but it's not conclusive. So, yes, bylaws and laws are essentially the same thing. One is municipal, one is provincial or federal. So
with this situation, because we've heard of other jurisdictions, I think in the province of Ontario, they tried to pass a pit bull ban province-wide. But these things are really hard to enforce because unless you register your dog and you get a license for it, there's no way to know, right?
Yes. Zach, a bylaw applies when I get a parking ticket in downtown Vancouver. If I park at a meter and I don't put money in, or I do and it runs out, then it's under a bylaw that they write me a ticket. So the bylaws are city rules, and the laws generally are provincial or federal. So it's rules, but it comes from different governments.
Does it have the same, pardon the pun, teeth that a provincial law would have, say for fines and maybe being arrested in a city bylaw?
It does.
Yeah,
it does. Obviously, the federal government, the provincial government deal with more serious things, but it has the same teeth. You're still breaking the law. One example is that Vancouver has a bylaw where a merchant has to clear the sidewalk in front of his store or establishment, and if it snows and you don't clear it and someone hurts himself, you're breaching a bylaw, and it's also prima facie evidence that you might be negligent as well. So there's an example where the interplay between breaking a law or a bylaw and negligence, a civil negligence in a civil suit.
It's good because I hear this term all the time, bylaw, and people maybe are curious like myself that is there a difference? It's not like you're going to go to Supreme Court in BC. Where would you go with a bylaw infraction if it went to court? Probably provincial court.
Okay. By definition, it's less serious things.
Right.
But you are still breaking a law by breaking a bylaw.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We want to get back into the dog part of this because not sure if you've ever had a situation in personal injury about dog biting somebody. What is the responsibility of any dog owner, regardless of whether it's a pit bull or a Staffordshire Terrier or whatever falls into that category of pit bull? We'll continue the conversation next. We have with us today Joe Murphy, QC at Murphy Battista, and Joe Battista, QC at Murphy Battista. The founding partner is next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.